Welcome to Underwire Podcast. So if you are returning, thank you. If you're new, please subscribe. Hit that subscribe button under the YouTube video and like and share. The more you share on social media, the more we can grow. And if you have little ears listening today, it'd probably be a good idea to give them something else to do or put your earbuds in while you listen to this, because we are talking about a sensitive topic, and it will be an emotional ride, but please stick around until the end because it definitely ends in victory. And this is definitely also a story about my lovely cousin, Trina Esposito, and her journey to Jesus and forgiveness as well. Welcome, Trina.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
And I know everybody's probably like, wait, she has another cousin? Yes, I do. I could do podcasts probably one a week till the end of, for a year, and I still would not be through my cousins. So that's the beauty of being who we are. I will say that not only am I so grateful that you're here and that I've known you for so long, and we had so many fun times when we were younger.
You sure did.
But I think it's so cool that we've come full circle and look at us now. Yeah. We're talking about such important topics, and we both have a heart to help women, but in different ways.
Yes.
That's what I love.
Yes.
Definitely soul sisters. I will mention right now, your day job is you're an exterior and interior painter, but you're also studying lay ministry. And if you could tell everyone, what does lay ministry mean?
Basically, to put a long story short, I cannot have my own church. I can do everything that a minister would be able to do except run and operate a parish.
Okay. And you're okay with that because that's a lot of responsibility, right?
Yeah. Little, I already have a full-time job.
I know. It's a lot. Okay. So that will allow you to counsel people.
Yes.
And anything else, I mean, probably just do more of what you're kind of easing into now, which is you do sermons sometimes for your church minister when he goes out of town.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll be able to marry people. I'll be able to do baptisms.
You're like
funerals.
Joey on Friends.
Yes,
I'm kidding.
That's right. I wear my hat and everything.
I love Friends.
But I mean, the main goal for me, though, is to be able to counsel and have the authority to be able to counsel people. Even though my life experiences, I feel like I have the authority to do that. But a lot of people feel more comfortable with a title. So
I know.
I want to make them feel comfortable when I'm sitting with them and being able to try to coach or help.
Plus, even though you already know a ton about the Bible, you're probably learning it a different way or a ton more. So it's only going to benefit you.
I'm actually living it. So living it and learning it are two totally different things.
Which reminds me of the one sermon that you sent me. Can people get that online?
Yep.
Okay, where could they go to see that? Because I'm telling you, I have to watch it again. No, it was.
I think it's published on our church website, Faith Wesleyan Church.
Okay, I'm going to write a note to put the church website under the video as well. I got to tell you, it was so touching.
Thank you.
I think you're an articulate, like in your memory. I'm like, she's not even looking at her notes. How does she remember all this stuff?
It was so near and dear to my heart.
But the message was so powerful, and I have a horrible memory, and I just watched it today. But what were you saying about like Jesus is present? But what was your message?
It's all about revival.
Right.
And throughout the history of the Old Testament, Jesus was continually trying to reveal himself.
As God.
Yes.
I loved how you put that. So God was revealing himself in the Old Testament.
And Jesus was revealing himself in the New Testament as God's son.
Yes.
But in every situation, we always questioned.
And now he's present as the Holy Spirit.
Yes.
We'll get into that, but it was just so cool the way you explained everything. You do run a few women's groups now and Bible studies as well.
Yes.
So I'm going to start off with a not so easy topic. And thank you for reliving it. And I know that your heart is to help other people, especially women.
Yes.
And that's why you do this. So if you want to take us back to the day that you were, I don't want to say the wrong word, you called it a tragedy, a life-changing tragedy.
Yes.
I want to make sure I use the right word. Be respectful of that. How many years ago was that, Trina?
March 9th, 2017.
So first start off with, like, I remember where you were working, but just in general, where were you working and why were you in the environment that you were in?
Okay, I left a job at Mid-South Basin is what it was called. It was gas and oil industry.
Uh-huh.
I was the assistant operations manager there for a long time. It was a wonderful job. I loved what I did. Basically worked 24 hours a day.
You've
So
always
it
been
was
such a hard worker.
Very demanding. However, I knew that the industry was starting to close up. So with that in mind, I wanted to branch out and try to find something that I knew I would be able to hold on to retire from.
Right.
So I applied to UGI, which is our local gas company.
Gas company. Okay.
And I got hired with them.
Mm-hmm.
I was working with them. Oh my goodness. It wasn't even, I went through my training process. The training process took a while. It was probably about 6 months because there was a lot to learn.
Yeah.
And then I was on my own for about 3 months when this
You were only
happened.
on your own for 3 months.
Yes.
Okay.
And my job there was if you called up and you said, I want gas to my house, I would come out, I would survey, I would look at everything and see what was needed to put gas to your house. First of all, if we even had a gas line running down your road. If we
Right.
didn't, then I would have to canvass areas and different streets and blocks to see if there's interest to do a gas extension.
So it's safe to say you were in a lot of rural areas.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's what I was doing on that day. I was canvassing for a gas extension. And I was canvassing about a 6-block area because I'm a go-getter and I like to go big. Instead of just doing a block at a time, I was trying to do as much as I
Right.
possibly could.
How far apart were the houses?
The houses are just like they are here. They're close together.
So they weren't far apart. So
No.
you probably had some sort of sense of security because you're like, oh, there's a lot of houses around.
Yeah.
It's not like you were in the middle of the woods or something, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. And it was my job
Okay.
to go house to house.
Gotcha.
It was my job.
Okay.
So
All
that's
right.
what I did.
All right. So you left your last, and I'm going, I mean, I haven't talked to you about this for years, if I remember correctly. You left your last house, right? And weren't you walking back to your car?
I was walking back to my car.
Yeah.
And where I parked, there was a garage behind me. Actually, behind my car where I parked. There was a house, and I think I might have even parked in their little stone driveway.
Yeah.
I'm not really even sure.
Right.
But I think that's where I parked.
Okay.
But I knew behind my vehicle there was a big garage.
Mm-hmm.
So as I was walking back to my car, I just felt a bag. It was a burlap bag.
Oh my gosh.
Burlap bag was
Okay.
put over my head. And it was forcefully put over. I was looking down, looking at my notes and stuff like that. And I just felt that force of this bag being put over my head. And it pulled me back. And then I felt a very hard object pointing right at the side of my shoulder blade, my right shoulder blade. And I heard a voice. It was a whisper. If you make a sound, you're dead. So I didn't make a sound.
Mm.
And then I was pushed, and between my mid-thigh and my knee is where I hit a vehicle, is what I'm assuming it was, because then I felt underneath my shoulders, I felt them pick me up and put me into this vehicle, and I was on my rear end, and they turned me around. At least it felt like they were turning me around. And I had a gag then shoved like in my mouth and tied in the back of my neck. And they just kept whispering, don't say a word. Don't say a word.
Did you only hear one man's voice at this point?
There were 3 voices that I heard, 3 whispers, because they never actually spoke in a tone above a whisper.
Wow.
But I heard the whisper. It was as loud as somebody was screaming.
I brought the tissues for you, but I might need them. So what Do you remember, if anything, I'm sure shock set in. Was there anything going through your mind?
I thought I was dead. I thought, this is it. This is how I'm going to go. So I did whatever they told me to do. They had a rope, and they told me they would run it through my hand, and they would every so often say, grab, grab, grab. And I had no clue why they were doing it. And I just did what they said. Then they tied my wrists and my ankles, and I was spread out. And it hurt because it was tied so tight. And I wanted to, I so badly wanted to try to just get out of everything, but I didn't move. I was like a statue, just laying there.
Do you think that was a calculated tactic on your part, or shock, or both?
Shock.
Shock.
I think it was shock. Because I thought to myself, if I move, I thought they were going to shoot me. I mean, I don't know if it was a gun. I could only imagine that it was a gun, since they're telling me not to speak or they're going to shoot me. And I felt it. It could have been a stick for all I knew.
Right.
But I didn't know. So I just laid there, and then they had scissors that were, I think scissors, because nothing cut me, but they cut my shirt all the way down the front of me, and then my pants all the way down. And I had khakis on that day, so it was not like I had jeans on that were harder to cut.
How long do you think it lasted?
Well,
The tragedy.
there was, when I felt their hands on me, and I could tell that it was really smooth. So I was thinking they were wearing gloves. It was too smooth.
Okay.
But I felt them put their and I remember I would flinch, and they had something hard that they hit me in the head with.
Oh my gosh, Trina, I didn't know that part.
If I moved, yeah, they hit me in the head. It was right across here. The cheekbone was across here on each side. And then a couple times on the top of the head. They would touch, and I would flinch, and I didn't want to, but it was an uncontrolled response.
Right.
And then there was a point where I knew it wasn't them on top of me at that moment, because I didn't feel them, but they inserted something inside of me, and it hurt. It hurt so bad. I did scream, like a yelp,
oh my gosh.
because of the pain. And then they hit me so hard, it knocked me out.
Oh my gosh. As awful as that is, my first thought is, thank God they knocked you out.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know.
My gosh. First of all, I'm so sorry that you have to relive this. And you don't know how much I appreciate you doing this. And I know you're doing it because your heart is to help.
Yes, because I know that there are women out there that have been through maybe the same thing, maybe not the same thing, but something like it.
Right.
Any form of sexual abuse is a tragedy.
Right.
So
it just steals every bit of your soul from you.
Yes, it does.
Okay, so when did you come to, which you probably don't know how long of a time lapse that was, and then where were you when you gained consciousness again?
I was still in the vehicle, and I could hear things that it sounded like tools were along the sides of the vehicle moving around, because they were driving.
Oh my gosh.
They were driving around while all of this happened. There was a driver, and then there were 3 people in the back with me as he drove around. And the things that they said to me are forever ingrained. I will never forget them, ever. The vulgarity of the words that they used when they were referring to my body, to my looks, to everything that was associated to me.
Right.
I felt dirty. I felt so filthy. In that moment, I actually did want them to kill me because I did not want to go any further knowing that these men have touched me and done things to me that I didn't give them permission to do.
Oh my God.
So there was a couple points where they raped me. And then again, I flinched a couple more times, and they knocked me out a couple times. So this had happened over hours. It was hours.
I had no idea you kept gaining consciousness.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. So at that point, you're probably praying to die.
It was not a moment I even wanted to live through.
Are you saying any prayers at this point in your head, or are you just so in shock that you
I was saying goodbye to my parents.
Oh.
In my head, I was saying goodbye to my mom, to my dad, to my brothers, and to my boyfriend at the time. And for God to please tell them how much I love them.
Oh my God.
And that's what I kept over and over, over and over, over and over. And at that point, I had so much fear.
Right.
But there came a moment where all of a sudden I heard a voice say, "It's going to be okay." Wow. And I could hear it plain as day. And it wasn't the men, the people that were doing this to me.
Sure.
So when I heard that, I just felt a sense of calmness.
Oh my gosh.
Throughout my entire body.
It's God.
And they were doing whatever they were doing to me. And I literally didn't even.
You disassociated,
yes,
don't you?
I was outside
Yes.
of myself at that moment. When I heard that and that peace came about me, I all of a sudden separated.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to. That's your brain protecting you for sure. Oh my gosh.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. I didn't think I was going to. Oh my gosh. I'm sure this is touching everyone, not just women, but just especially women. I mean, so when did the vehicle eventually stop moving?
I know when I think they thought they killed me.
Really?
Because they had beaten me pretty in the head.
Really?
Yeah, pretty hard.
So you are like 100% sure that was their plan?
Yeah. I believe.
Were you trying to play? Oops. Were you trying to play dead? Absolutely.
Because
right.
after I felt that peace and I became outside of myself, it became I don't know if it became a game and I didn't flinch anymore. They would hit me more and more. And I didn't move. So I think they thought I was dead. And I had a bag on my head, so they couldn't see what they did to me.
You know what? This is going to sound awful, but thank God you did.
Yeah.
Because then they couldn't see
my reaction.
Right.
Yep. So they dumped me in a creek.
Oh my gosh.
They pulled my body out and threw me into a creek.
With the bag still on your head.
With the bag still on my head. It was March, so the water was freezing. Yeah, but I didn't move. I don't know how, because anybody that knows me knows I'm a baby when it comes to cold water. I won't even get in my own pool if it's not 85 degrees.
Thanks for breaking the ice.
So yeah, I did not move.
100% survival mode. That's why you didn't move, Trina. And God was with you.
He most certainly was.
Do you believe in guardian angels?
I do. Especially now.
Mm-hmm. So they dump you in the creek. You're playing dead. Did they all of a sudden just Like, could you hear them
I
leave
could
right
hear-
away, or did they stand around a little bit?
I could hear 2 drops, which I then realized was my keys and my phone.
Oh, well, sure. They wouldn't want to take those with them. That's evidence. Okay.
And then I heard the vehicle pull away because it was stones. I could hear them drive away, and I heard their footsteps getting in, and then I heard the tires going out. So I don't even know how long I laid there because I was so afraid. I was so afraid.
I was just going to say that. I think, of course, I can never imagine, but I think I would have been like, I want to make sure they're really gone. I'm just going to lay here.
And I just
hours.
laid there, and I don't think I moved a muscle. The water wasn't deep enough to come over my head.
Good. Yeah.
But it was deep enough that my nose and my mouth were the only thing that were out. So when I finally opened my eyes, I guess I could say, I took the bag off. The strings were still hanging because they cut me from the ropes that they had tied me with.
Oh, okay. So you
still had
the ropes on your wrists and this.
Yes. And I saw where I was. I saw a bridge, and it was dark.
How was the bag tied tight? Like, how did you get the bag off?
There was a thing on a gag that they had tied in the back of my neck.
Over the bag?
Yes, over the bag. That's
it was keeping it on.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, keeping it on, and it was inside my mouth, so I didn't say anything. I wasn't. But anyway, I noticed a house. There was a house right there. And I'm pulling myself out of the creek. I obviously took the gag off. I took the bag off my head, pulling myself out of the creek, and I'm looking for my keys. I'm looking for my phone. My phone was in the water. I don't even know how I found it. I think it was like a beacon of light for me to actually find my phone. I couldn't use it because it was wet.
Plus, back then, they were probably still like flip phones or something.
Yes, it was a flip phone. And then...
Did you ever think, because this is where my brain went, they live there?
Well, I knocked on the door.
Oh my gosh, Trina.
I needed help.
I know, but what if that was their house? That didn't cross your mind?
No, because I heard him drive away.
You're in shock.
Well, I heard him drive away, so I'm thinking I could be their home.
Okay, I know, but
I didn't even see a vehicle.
You were just so, I know, yeah.
But I'm holding my clothes, and I'm knocking on the door. I'm knocking on the window. I heard a dog barking, but nobody answered the door. So here I am. I mean, I don't even know what I looked like at the time because I couldn't see myself. But I'm holding my clothes together, and there's a Unimart two houses down. I walked down to that Unimart.
Well, I don't blame you.
And
who cares at that point?
As soon as I walked in the door, the lady behind the counter rushed around me and locked the door behind me. And she got on the phone and called 911.
Were there other customers in there?
There was a woman with her child, and I think I scared them.
Oh, well, you didn't.
And then there was a man that lived across the street. He saw me come in. And he had a sweatshirt for me, but I was so scared.
Yeah.
I ran around the chip container because I was afraid. Yeah. And then the lady actually handed it to me then. But the cops got there really, really fast. And he tried to ask me questions, but I couldn't really answer.
No.
And then the ambulance came and took me to the hospital. And I had big marks on my face from being hit.
I am so sorry. That sounds like such an empty sentence.
It's not, though.
But how long do you think you were in like medical shock? What they would consider shock?
Probably a week.
Really? I thought you were going to say like 24 hours. So did you utter a word for that week? Like what's the first word you
I
uttered?
tried. I did.
Yeah.
I tried, but I wasn't making much sense.
Okay. Who's the first person you spoke to? Like, was it a nurse?
Yeah,
or-
the nurse that came. They had
God
to
bless the nurses, right?
Yes.
Walking into that
And
situation.
the thing is, and I remember everything. They were so delicate with me.
The nurses, you gotta love them. I mean, they do God's work. I don't care what you say.
And then they did,
especially in the ER.
Yeah, they did a rape kit, which was not pleasant.
Oh dear God, Trina. So you just go through that, and then of course they have to test you.
Yeah.
Mm.
And they kept my clothes. I wanted them to call my parents, and I asked my mom and dad to call Mike. And they came. And now, I don't even really remember a whole lot.
Let me just interject. Your parents are the sweetest
They are.
like people ever. Love them. And I can only imagine as a mother, I can't. Because I'm not supposed to be the one crying, so I have to compose myself. But when I picture one of my girls in that situation, I just, like, I wouldn't even care if I went to jail. I would, first of all, you're dealing with, the heartbreaking situation for your daughter, but then the anger sets in. So describe to me when you first saw your mom and dad walk in. Did that kind of snap you back into, like,
I cried.
You probably, because you were probably, now I'm no medical professional, but you were probably in shock and in defense mode, and you were probably all tensed up.
I was.
And then as soon as you saw them, did your defenses go boom?
I just bawled.
Yeah. Like you were like, I'm safe.
I just, like, tears were flowing so hard. And I remember just sobbing. I couldn't breathe. I was sobbing so hard. And then when I saw not only my mom cry, but my dad was uncontrollable. So that's hard to see your dad like that.
Sure.
Not that it's not to see your mom.
But men typically don't cry. Right? I know what you're saying.
So, sorry.
Oh no! Look, I brought a whole new box. So I knew this was going to be hard.
I've told this story, and I still cry when I tell it.
Well, of course you do. Not only the emotional part and the spiritual part, but the psychological part.
Yeah.
That is a part of your
it's my DNA now.
I was going to say your DNA, your nervous system. That lives in there forever.
Yep.
So they're consoling you. I think, didn't Sammy come too? Didn't your brother?
Stevie did.
Or Stevie
came up from Florida. It was, I think, a couple days later. And he's my best friend. My little brother's my best friend.
He was always so cute.
Yeah. So
I'm just going to break the ice here for a little, for the people listening. You were always pretty good, but when I used to, come over and Sammy and I would be having a party at your house or something, God love Stevie. That night before when we were partying, he'd look at all of Sammy and our friends, and he's like, "Who's taking me to church tomorrow?" We're like, "Really?" I had to break the ice. He's such a sweetheart. I had to break the ice.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, Sammy and I were like, "Okay, dude." But how long were you in the hospital? Because
they released me that night.
I was going to say that's normally not. They don't.
Yeah, they released me that night.
With probably a lot of resources, yes, I hope.
Yes.
Okay.
They sent somebody to talk to me. I don't even remember where she was from. I didn't even really want to talk to her.
You probably weren't even registering what she was saying at that point.
I knew she was talking to me about getting help for what happened. But I honestly looked at her, and in my mind, I'm like, I just want to go home.
And is that
I just want to get out of here.
I mean, is that really how they're trained? That horrific tragedy happens. You're still in shock. You're not ready to talk about getting help yet. I would think that their first line of help for you would be like, let's just be soothing for her. Let's just, let her know she's safe. It might even, and correct me if I'm wrong, it might even be, or maybe it wouldn't have been that soon. I was going to say, would it have been more helpful if like another victim would have been your first person you saw instead of like,
I don't think so.
it wouldn't have mattered.
No. At that moment, after having to try to tell even the nurse and the doctors what happened.
And I'm sure the cops came in.
Yes. And it was too difficult for me to even, I tried. I don't even know if I made sense. I can't remember.
Oh my God.
But I just wanted to go home.
I know.
I just wanted to get out of there.
Oh my gosh, Trina.
And go home. And all I wanted was for Mike to just hold me tight.
Sure.
And that's all I wanted. That was all I kept thinking about. That was it. Besides being happy to be alive.
Sure. So before I go on with other questions, if anybody's listening, and I think the more we talk, it'll be more helpful for women that have been through something similar the more we talk. But right now at this point, I think it makes more sense to highlight prevention. So are you okay without passing judgment on you? And I hate asking questions like this because like with another guest I had, I'm like, I don't want to ask you what you could have done differently because I don't want you to ever not forgive yourself or feel guilty because it was not your fault. However,
yes,
in this context, how can we talk to other women, especially young girls with the phones and the texting? And I say to my daughters all the time, when you leave a store, the mall, a friend's house, you do not get on that phone until you get in that car. And when you're walking to your car, you look around. Does anything look suspicious? And then the sex trafficking things that they do, like all the little tricks, we've all seen the videos.
Yes.
I'm like always sending them to my girls because I'm constantly worried about that.
It's out there.
It's so scary. What, in hindsight, of course, and it being several years later now, would you say to other women to prevent something like this? What are some tips?
Well, you just said it. Always be aware of your surroundings. I was looking down. I was focusing on my notes for the day. My mind was ingrained in that. I didn't even hear a vehicle approach. I didn't even hear footsteps coming behind me.
Wow.
Because I was looking at something else and I was focused.
Thinking.
Yes, I was thinking about my day.
Oh my gosh.
And who I needed to talk to on the phone that night. Instead, I should. And again, it's hindsight is 2020.
No, this is just for teaching.
But if I had that day to do all over again, I would have put my notes at the side and I would have had my key in my hand, getting ready to get into my vehicle, looking around that alley where I was parked as I was walking to my car.
So you jogged my memory when you said key. So our other cousin, who ironically enough has the same name as your brother, because if you have a big enough family, we have like 3 Johnnies, 5 Joeys, a couple of Stevies. Our other cousin, Steve Esposito. Well, his name was Hunter, but for those of listening, he owned a bunch of Taekwondo. I don't know what kind of karate he owned in Texas, a bunch of studios, and he would teach a lot of self-defense classes. Yes. He's a black belt and all that. He's a sensei and all that stuff. Okay. He said to me one time, he was given a self-defense class that I took, and I do this all the time now, Trina. He said, take your keys and put them
in the middle of your fingers.
I layer them in my fingers.
Yeah.
And I walk like that. Like I'm ready to go, like in my hand.
Well, the problem with that though now is all of these vehicles are keyless. So it's one of those situations where you just have to have it.
I'm a dork though. I have a bunch of keys. I don't even know what I'm like, I don't even know what all these keys are for. I don't ever use them, but I still have a bunch of keys. So find some old school keys and put them. And then he always said, if you could go for the eyes with the keys. If they come from behind, there's a spot on the thumb. If you can grab it, it's weird. It like flip, And then he taught us about the spot in the throat. So please get get some self-defense classes if you're listening. If you don't think it's going to happen to you, I don't care. Just please.
Well, I never thought that was going to happen to me.
Right. And if you're a woman, please just do it.
Yeah.
And I don't want anybody hating on me for the whole firearms debate, but if you do carry, if somebody does have a carry license and they carry, you probably weren't even allowed to do that at that job.
No, I was not.
Which is a whole other podcast.
Yes, okay. I was not.
You're not allowed to protect yourself as a woman.
I didn't have one at the time. I mean, I'm a hunter, so I had a rifle, but that's at home. I'm not carrying a rifle.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, a little crazy.
Right.
But now I definitely carry.
Sure. So going back to, you go home, how long does it take for you to even come out of that, I don't want to call it a stupor, like that shock? Like,
it took me about a week.
Oh my goodness.
It really did.
Were you talking? You probably weren't even talking.
I didn't want to say much.
Yeah.
I really didn't.
I assume you weren't eating.
No, I wasn't sleeping.
Oh, yeah, that was my next question.
I didn't sleep for about a month. I did not look good. I was very withdrawn.
God.
My skin color was different. My organs were starting to shut down.
Oh my
gosh. I couldn't sleep. They gave me 5 different sleep aids. My doctor did. Nothing worked. It was just, I heard their whispers all night long, no matter what. I would have nightmares then when I did finally get to sleep. It was a cycle. It was a really long cycle.
Where was your faith journey at this point? Before the attack? Tragedy.
I always thought of myself as a believer.
Okay.
I always did.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I taught Sunday school. I helped with being the secretary with my church. My church closed though. And I was in a bit of a
in between.
Yeah, because I wasn't sure where to go.
Mm-hmm.
Tried a couple different churches, and I was Catholic at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wasn't happy.
Right.
With
I was
what
a
I
church
was getting
for a while
from
as
church.
well.
Yeah, I wasn't happy with what I was getting from the Catholic Church.
Right.
So I didn't go for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But I always considered myself a follower of Jesus.
Sure.
But once I heard his voice keep me calm in the worst moment of my entire life, I knew that it was my duty and my job to seek him.
And what did you say in the sermon that I watched? You brought something up like, gosh, I should have taken notes. You spoke to that point because you were like, how many of us call ourselves Christians
and we don't walk the walk?
Yes.
We don't carry what we hear on a sermon on Sunday. We don't carry that to the pavement of our experience.
Yes. And we're not living it.
Yes. So that's what I knew.
That hit me hard, by the way.
Well, good. But I knew from that point, I needed to seek out God. I needed to start searching. It took me some time, though, because I was holding on to a lot of fear. A lot of fear. And I didn't want to leave my house.
Of course. I remember that. I remember that phase. Yeah.
And I was afraid to drive.
Yeah, I remember that too.
I have no idea. And I still don't
blame
understand
you.
why I was afraid to. I could be a passenger, but as soon as I got behind the wheel of the car, I was swarmed with their whispers and the words that they used, and it just overcame me.
Well, because maybe here I go. I'm not a therapist, but I always psychoanalyze my guests. Maybe because while it was happening, that you were but that doesn't make sense because you could ride.
Well, it doesn't make sense because my car
Yeah.
was in a different spot when they found it. It wasn't where I left it.
Are you kidding?
So for me thinking they dropped my car key and I heard 2 drops.
Yeah.
They had my key. And it didn't register to me at the time.
Gosh.
That they had my key.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about it. I just assumed it was still in my pants
So you
pocket.
think they drove your car?
Well, they had to. I didn't.
Ew.
I mean, I don't have any.
Get in it.
I didn't. I got rid of it.
Oh my gosh, I don't blame you.
Yeah, I got rid of it. I didn't even do it. Mike got rid of it. I didn't want anything to do with it.
Okay, so what was your first? Okay, during this time that you're struggling, you're not eating, you're not sleeping, you're struggling to talk, you're still in shock. Did the hospital or mental health step in? Did they send anybody to your house? Did they call you? Were there people trying to help you?
The lady that they had sent into the room with me that night, she reached out to me the next day.
Wow, that's fast.
Yes, the next day.
Okay.
And then with Mike was my boyfriend at the time was, we were together 11 years. So he had just retired from the police department, and he had 2 detectives from Williamsport help with my case. So he had them get involved, and I don't even know. I can't answer that honestly because I don't know how I got the help. I just know somebody ended up giving me a phone call.
Because you were probably still in a fog.
I got a phone call from somebody that reached out to me after that lady reached out. I went to my doctor then 2 days later.
Okay.
Because I didn't want to do anything the day after I got home.
No, of course not.
So I went to see my doctor 2 days later. And then I can only assume she's the one that gave me the resources.
Sure.
Because I still don't even remember my appointment with her.
Of course not. I mean, I can't.
At least not the first one.
Your brain was still in survival mode. So how long then? Well, not really. It's not really relevant. But did you eventually start? What was your first line of help? Was it a therapist?
Yes.
So it was a private therapy session. Was this a therapist that specialized in this type of occurrence?
She did, but I'll be honest with you. I did not get help from my first therapist.
And that's okay, because I said this on another podcast. Like any other profession, there's a lot of good ones, but there's a lot of really not so good ones.
Yeah, she...
and I almost think they have to specialize. Like, you wouldn't go to an orthopedic for heart surgery.
No.
You know what I mean? Like,
well, she was... apparently, she was a specialist in sexual abuse.
Oh.
But her method... I
just didn't vibe with you.
No, she never spoke. I had to start talking. Like, I had nothing to say.
Right.
So it was a very quiet hour.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Probably made you feel even worse. You probably left feeling worse.
I did. I felt I didn't want to go back.
Okay, but that's a tactic. That didn't work.
That did not work. She actually referred me then to, she thought I needed EMDR therapy.
Which is?
EMDR is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy.
Wow.
What it does is it's a therapy that's proven to help people recover from post-traumatic stress, from a traumatic event like I had, or any trauma in general.
Wow.
It utilizes eye movement.
Huh.
So she would get both of your eyes to move at the same time, which mimics REM sleep. And when you're in REM sleep, you start to remember memories that you've suppressed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And this even brought back memories from my first husband that I had no clue I was repressing.
No.
Yes.
So this sounds like it would be good for anybody.
Oh, anybody that's been through a traumatic event.
Or had a traumatic childhood.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So when we didn't start right off the bat with the EMDR therapy. When she referred me to this other therapist, we had a couple sessions together. I felt so comfortable with her.
Oh, good.
She was so quiet. She asked me stuff that, that I needed to be asked to get me to start opening up.
Oh, good.
So I ended up just only seeing her.
So that is an important point that I want to make to people listening as well. Please don't give up on therapy. Just because it's like dating.
Yeah. Oh, dear.
Okay. Sorry, but that's the only analogy that popped in my head.
That is true, though.
You're not going to jive with everybody, but when you find the one, you're going to know. Yeah. Like, we click.
She became my soul sister.
Aww.
Because honestly, between her and the Lord,
oh, good.
I got on the path of the journey of healing that I needed to be on.
How long did you see her?
A year.
You were I would have thought more than that.
I saw her for a year.
Well, that's good.
And she always says, it wasn't me, it was God. She always gives the glory to God.
Oh, good.
I always gave the glory to God in her.
Yeah.
She says, nope, it was God.
Oh.
But if it was not for God, obviously,
working through her,
I would never be where I am today. I know that without a doubt, because she cared. She cared about me. And the more I learned about God, and when I found where I needed to be with Christ,
right,
that I didn't stop. I just didn't stop.
Can you imagine having a profession like hers and getting up every day? Well, you can because you're in it. Getting up every day and going to your job and knowing without a shadow of a doubt that you are making a difference that you are helping someone. Because I just can't imagine, bouncing back from something like that. So shout out to her.
Yes. Even if it's one person, it's worth it.
Right. Which is why you're here.
Which is why I'm here.
And you're lucky because I think I only have one person listening. No. At this point, I don't know.
I hope I'm helping.
Maybe we'll have two now. I'm glad we can laugh. I'm so glad you're at that point where I can interject that.
Yes.
And if anybody thinks that I'm being insensitive, I knew you were okay at this point, and you are my cousin.
She is definitely.
Okay.
She is not being insensitive.
Okay, so let's kind of get off the emotional track for a minute. Did the attackers ever have their day in court?
No.
Could they ever be identified?
No. They never found one shred of
My God.
hair.
How
never
is that
found
possible,
one shred
Trina?
of anything.
I know you said you felt like they had gloves on, but come on.
I know. Especially if
they drove your car.
Yeah. Which is why Mike was so adamant about getting those detectives involved. And as a matter of fact, where my car ended up was in front of a garage, a body shop of some sort.
Oh, shocker.
And there was a camera, and one of the detectives that got the recording from the shop, apparently they destroyed it when they were looking at it, their police department. Knowing that they had my vehicle, I always thought they were coming back for me.
Oh my gosh, I never even thought about that.
If they found out I was not dead, I worried that they were coming back for me. So I was scared. I was scared to leave my house.
Of course you were.
I was scared to go anywhere without Mike. They
didn't have your vehicle, but they had driven it at one point. So
I don't
knew
know
your license plate number.
Yeah.
They knew what
I didn't know if they looked through
probably
my
knew
glove
your
box.
address.
Yes.
That's what I'd be scared of.
That's what I thought.
Because they had your wallet.
I thought, did they look through my glove box and see my registration?
Oh, yeah.
All that stuff with my address on it.
Oh, my gosh.
So I held on to that for a while.
I'm sure.
But through the process of, when they found this tape, then they didn't find this tape, nothing was on it. I ended up and through the Lord, and it was a process.
Oh, it is. Let everybody listening know.
It was a process.
See, that's one of the problems with podcasts. And when people do short little, videos. We're talking about it in 45 minutes?
Yeah.
When it was years.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it took me the hardest thing I had to do, and I'm going to say the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my entire 49 years of being on this earth. Is forgiving the men that did that to me. But I can say, and I can tell you wholeheartedly, that I do. Because if it wasn't for them doing what they did, I would not be the person that I am today. So I won't thank them.
No.
But I do forgive them.
Can I just tell you that is such a huge statement.
Yeah.
because I know you and I know you're not lying.
Yeah.
I know that you are genuine and you're telling the truth when you say that. I will tell you this, though. You were pretty great before this happened.
Thank you.
So I understand what you're saying. You wouldn't be the person you are today. Maybe you wouldn't be as close to the Lord. Maybe you still would have been one of those Christians that said I'm a Christian, but I wasn't living a Christian life.
Yeah.
And this is a really hard concept for a lot of people to understand in the beginning stages of their journey, their faith journey. And I know this because it was certainly hard for me to get. And when we lose certain people in our lives, and they die, for instance, if it's an untimely death or if it's a death of a young person, of course, we always say, well, why did God do this? I'm sure you get that a lot through your counseling people at the church. And what I've learned and what I try to encourage everyone that says that to me is, listen, God does not make anything happen. God allows things to happen. And then he gives us free will. And then when the darkness happens and tragedies like yours happen, it allows his light to be exposed.
Yeah.
And if the devil wasn't working his magic on earth, God couldn't shine his light as to what is really the truth.
God wants us to choose him.
And that's the ultimate goal, isn't it?
Yes.
God just wants you.
Yeah. He's a jealous God. He wants us to choose him.
And so I recently in my personal life had this discussion with someone that I knew, and I was trying to get this person to understand. I know what is happening is really hard, but I really feel in my heart that God wants you and that God's after you. And so he's going to allow you to keep using your free will to make really not so wise decisions. Because until you surrender all to him and you go to him, I didn't know this was going to turn into this, but it is. We're preaching. He will not stop allowing tragedy to happen. And that really sucks.
It really does stink.
Nobody wants to hear that. I didn't want to hear it.
Well, and one thing like you said, a lot of people ask, well, why would God allow this? You're losing the death of even a child and I actually tend to tell people that when they say, where was God? Well, God was in the same place he was when his son, Jesus Christ, was hanging on the cross.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
That
hits home. See what I mean? You are so good. You just, you know just what to say, girl. Oh my gosh. And God was in your ear. I can tell you that. He was holding you the whole time.
He was right there. So it was my duty then, once I actually got to a point where I left my house, but the only place I would go was to my cousin's gym, where I felt safe.
Right.
Because I knew everybody there. Everybody that walked in the door was my friend.
Right.
And it was a space of safety for me.
And you always like to work out.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it really helped me just being there and being around people and being able to work out and release that stress.
That's great advice, Trina.
Yes.
So two important pieces there. Stay around safe people.
Yes.
And get some sort of movement somehow.
Yeah, because honestly, if it wasn't for that, I would have sulked in my house day in and day out.
Even with the therapy.
The therapy. Yep.
And you just had to be patient with yourself.
I did. And I knew, even with the therapy and reading my Bible and everything, I knew this was not going to happen overnight.
Right.
I did give myself that grace. And that's one thing I think that we don't do enough of. We don't allow ourselves the time that we need to recover, to rest, to get better.
Well, what is mental health in the United States, Trina? I mean, what's this emotional stuff? Chop, chop. Have a baby. Back to work the next day. You don't have to spend time. You don't have to spend time with your newborn. Screw it. I mean,
back to work you go.
Yeah, and especially men. I talk about this a lot. They are not allowed to process their feelings.
Yeah.
And then we wonder why they commit such horrific crimes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we won't even go there. Okay. So how long would you say the process was then till you were able to like somewhat live a normal daily life, like look for another job, go other places other than the gym?
It took me a year and a half.
Okay, so definitely anybody that's listening that's been through this, please be patient with yourself and please seek help and go to people that are definitely safe.
A year and a half to get back to work. And I couldn't go back to what I did. I did not want to be around.
Of course not.
I didn't want to be around men. I didn't want to be around. I just didn't want to be around any of what I used to do.
And I don't want to talk about somebody that's not here, but I'm gonna. I mean, I don't even know why I said that because I was going to ask the question anyway. How did this affect your relationship with your boyfriend at the time?
It was hard.
You were like husband and wife.
Yeah, we were together a long time.
Yeah.
It was hard.
I'm sure.
He was wonderful in the beginning.
Yeah.
He really was. And my parents at the time had just bought a house in Florida, and their plan was to go and set everything up down there, and then this happened to me. And they were going to stay home. And honestly, Italian parents,
I know.
You know how they hover.
Yeah.
As much as I love my mother and father with my whole heart,
I know.
I did not need that.
We could be a little overbearing.
Just a little. You think?
Yeah.
I knew what would happen if they stayed.
Yeah.
And I think that would have been very bad for me.
Yeah, you would have been their entire focus. Can you imagine?
Yeah, that I would have been.
Are you okay? Are you okay? Knock, knock, knock.
They would have wanted to stay with me or me go stay with them.
Which their intentions were so in
genuine,
the right place.
Absolutely.
But not what somebody needs.
Not what I needed.
You need safe people, but not like 24/7.
I only wanted Mike.
Yeah.
I just wanted him. Yeah. I felt very safe with him. I knew he would keep me
protected.
Thank
God you had him.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And he was wonderful. He was wonderful. But then I think it got to a point after about 3 months where it was...
It's hard on the person.
It was starting to get hard on him.
Sure.
Taking me to doctor's appointments.
Absolutely.
He was driving me to the gym, to the studio.
Right.
And he was just taking me everywhere.
Yeah.
Not everywhere. That's the only place I went. But
and when you're taking care of somebody that's going through something like that, you're like living it too. You're reliving it. And it is. Let's talk about the caregivers. Yeah, it is hard on them.
I think it was really difficult on him.
Sure.
And then I couldn't talk about it
mm-hmm.
because he got upset when I would bring it up,
right?
Or try to talk about, talking to a lawyer or anything, any part of it.
I mean, do you think it was because he just thought, let's move forward and you keep reliving it kind of a thing, or?
I don't know. Because he would never talk to me about it.
Right.
I never knew why he would get so upset.
Yeah.
And then it just got to a point where I think he got upset with my parents because they weren't there.
Sure.
And even
Start to get a little resentful.
Yeah, even though I didn't want them to be there. Mm-hmm. I mean, my parents were still calling me, asking me how I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
He, I think, got upset because they never asked him how he was doing.
That's a good point.
But
good point.
I guess on both sides of it, their focus was me.
Sure, but I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
Because if anybody's listening and they do have a loved one going through that, let's pay attention to the person. I don't want to call him a caregiver, but what I mean.
He was. He
the
was,
partner, the person that's like going through it with the victim.
My little brother, Stevie, he would ask him how he's doing.
Oh, good.
But he was...
Of course, little Stevie.
Yeah, I think he was the only one. And I don't think my parents meant it to be... I don't think they meant it.
Just weren't thinking.
Yeah, I just don't think they even thought about it.
I really wouldn't have been cognizant of it.
Yeah, because he's such a strong man.
I'm a man. There we go again. Men are supposed to feel things.
Well, and he kept saying, I'm your rock. I'm your rock. So, but then it became where he wasn't my rock.
Yeah, because I will say this, being a caregiver in several different ways myself throughout my lifetime, if I didn't have such a strong faith, Trina, I would have lost my patience a lot of times. And when I feel myself losing my patience, I have to go to God, because I have to remind myself it's not the person's fault that I'm helping or taking care of. But if I didn't have my faith, I wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah.
So it's important. I think faith is even important for the person going through it with the victim.
Absolutely.
To not become resentful, to not be like, I just want, I can imagine I'd probably be like, oh my gosh, I just want my partner to be who he used to be.
Yeah.
I just want I want it to go back to the way it was. It's never going to be the same for us now. So that's a whole other part. But I'm so glad you brought it up.
Yeah.
Because, it has to be talked about. So as you were moving through your therapy and your faith, and you had your working out and your parents and all of that, your boyfriend, are there any resources, like either locally or nationally, that I can place under the video, like links to?
Well, I definitely want my therapist's information below.
We'll put
included.
She was a female, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Right? So we'll put her email or her website.
Pam Willette was her name.
Okay.
She was just essential to my healing.
Okay. And then I'll put your email under the video as well.
Yes.
How about your church website?
That would be a wonderful resource as well.
And then, how are you right now? How are you today in 2023? Are you still looking over your shoulder? How's your anxiety and fear?
My fear is still there, but it's a little quieter. It's a lot quieter. I go to a restaurant. I prefer to sit with my back against a wall. And the funny thing is, after it happened and I was able to actually, when I finally got to the point where I could go for a walk, I wanted to get a dog.
Yeah.
So I felt protected with a dog.
Of course.
And I would always look over my shoulder whenever I would hear, because I was very aware. I used to run and walk with headphones. I do not do that anymore.
That even scares me. And I know Sophia thinks I'm ridiculous. My 20-year-old, whoever's listening. And it just scares me. I'm like, Sophia, please, no.
Yeah, I do not do that anymore. And I know there's a lot of women that do like to, or even men that like to.
Well, I'm guilty. I walk with them in.
If you do, what I would suggest is even just wear one, so you can still hear. Or they have those ones that you don't put right in your eardrum.
Oh,
that you can still hear what's going on.
Oh, really? Like, where do you place them?
They have them where they just come right to the side, right here,
that's a good idea.
Yeah, right on their. They rest right below.
Oh my gosh, I'm learning
right in front
so
of the
much.
right in front of
I hope
the
we're
ear
helping
canal
people.
or whatever it is.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I don't wear those. And don't get me wrong, like if we go to an amusement park, I'm fine if I'm with my family, and I know the people that I'm around I feel safe with them, because I'm not going to let my fear overcome me to the point where I'm not going to enjoy my life.
Good. I'm glad you said that.
Because I know that I have these fears, but fear is also a liar, according to the Bible.
Yep.
But and now I'm not as afraid as I was. My anxiety is gone.
Oh, good.
It's just those little things where I really feel more comfortable if I'm able to see and be aware of what's going on around me.
Yes, absolutely.
And like I said, if we go to, I love amusement parks.
Yeah.
Love them.
Yeah.
And if I'm always with my family anyway, anytime I go somewhere, and I know they are not going to let one single thing happen to me.
So there is hope.
Yes.
Anybody that's listening that might be in the beginning stages of their recovery, there is hope.
Oh my gosh, yes.
There are resources.
Absolutely.
And it's going to take some time, but you'll never be quote unquote the same, but you'll have a new reality where like some feelings might still be present, but you can definitely have tools to control them.
Yes.
So I'll probably edit this out, but I'm just reading my questions because we already addressed that. And we already talked about prevention. See, I usually do this. I address my questions without even looking at them. Let's talk a little bit about forgiveness. So, how was the forgiveness journey for you?
Hard.
I knew that was going to be the hardest part.
It was
forgiveness of yourself or them or both.
Well, forgiving myself first, because I kept saying, I should have done this. I should have done this. I should have done that.
So if anybody's feeling that, it's completely
very normal. once I got past the fact that it was not my fault.
No, it
I
wasn't.
did absolutely nothing wrong.
Nobody deserves that. Nobody.
Once I finally said, Trina, these people are just animals.
Ugh,
These people,
they are.
they're sick people
So
that
sick.
need help.
Mm-hmm.
That actually started to help me on the process of forgiving them.
Wow. I don't even know how you ever got there. I mean, I do, the Lord, but.
It took me some time.
Sure. Were you talking to your pastor about it along the way, or was it a private conversation between you and God?
I had talked to my pastor a couple times, and then I befriended a woman at the church that I started doing a Bible study with, just her and I.
Mm-hmm.
And she helped me a lot too.
Aw. Did she have a similar experience, or she just was a lovely person?
She's just a lovely,
Okay.
lovely, magnificent, beautiful soul who loves the Lord
Yeah.
and knows him very intimately.
That's awesome.
And I just pray that I can only be like her someday.
Aww. That's the best compliment ever you can give somebody.
Yes, she's a beautiful person.
So, do you ever ask why me, or are you like...
I already know why me. It didn't take me long to figure out why me.
Because you were meant to speak God's word and that brought you to the Lord, or?
Well, that's part of it. But I was abused.
Mm-hmm. I wondered if you were going to go there.
And I cannot have children.
Yeah.
And
we should say you weren't a child. It wasn't child abuse.
No, it was
abused by a man.
Yes.
Physically abused.
My ex-husband,
Uh-huh.
my first husband, I should say, abused me.
Mm-hmm.
And I could not have children from the abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And let's face it, at the time I was 101 pounds.
Yeah, you were always so tiny.
Very tiny.
Mm-hmm.
I had long hair. I looked like a child.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm 5 foot. I looked like a child. And
height is not one of our issues in our family.
I was close to the school where, when I was walking back to my car, the school was only a couple blocks away, and it was letting out at that time. And
You mean after this recent attack?
when this tragedy happened, when they grabbed me.
So you were near a school?
Yes.
Oh
it
my
was
gosh.
It was like 3 or 4 blocks away from where I was.
Okay.
I honestly, I could be wrong, but I wholeheartedly believe they thought I was a kid. So in my heart, I think I saved a young girl from going through what I went through, who could have potentially been scarred for the rest of her life.
So you're saying when you were walking to your car and they grabbed you to attack you, that your attackers thought that you were a child?
That's what I'm thinking. That's
I mean,
the only thing to me that makes sense in my mind.
I mean, women get attacked too, but the really, really sickos, they go for the kids.
Yeah. And like I said,
Wow.
I'm pretty sure I was 4 blocks away from the school. And I remembered hearing the school bell ring.
Yeah.
And it was about that time too for school to be letting out.
That makes it even worse. I'm sorry. I mean, nothing can make it worse.
Oh, but a young girl, though,
Yeah.
she would have been scarred forever.
Yeah.
And I already couldn't have kids.
Oh, Trina.
I am already grown. I'm a grown woman.
Yeah.
That, even though it was the roughest and hardest journey.
I can't believe you are saying that you are glad it was you rather than a
I
child.
am so glad it was me. And I say that all the time.
My
I'm glad it was me
gosh.
and not a little girl. I say that all the time. I think that's
just
truly
when I
what
couldn't
happened.
respect you anymore. Like, you just give me that.
No.
Jeez.
No.
Wow, my brain never even went there.
Yeah.
We can't go there. I was going to say, all I can do is pray about it, like I'm sure you do, that they haven't gone on to do more of this. Like, all we can do is pray.
Yeah.
That
they seemed very skilled at what they did.
Well, all we can do is pray that maybe they did it again and got caught, or they got caught doing some other crime, or, well, if not, that's all right. They'll have to answer to God.
They will. And you know what?
Because you have your life review when you die, and that is not.
That's what gives.
You have to feel everything. I'm preaching to you, and you're the minister. Though.
That's what gives me justice.
Yeah. You feel everything you made everybody feel when you die. So go for it.
Because God says, vengeance is mine.
Yep.
And I know.
Yep.
I know he will have ultimate victory. I don't need to see.
That's probably the only thing that gives you comfort.
It's the only thing. I don't need to see what happens to those men.
But I'm sure you do pray that they have never touched another person.
I definitely do. Because I don't think they would find somebody as forgiving as me.
No. Okay, so let's see. Did we miss anything that you wanted to talk about?
I actually just want to say, if anybody does or has been through anything even remotely like this, don't give up on yourself. Don't rest in the misery, because it's there. It's going to be there. It is undoubtedly going to be there.
And it'll eat you alive.
And it will eat you alive. So you can either decide to scream with strength and pull your way out. Find somebody to talk to. You may not want to talk to a single soul, and I completely understand that because I was there. But find someone to reach out to, because the second you start to talk about it is the second you start with victory. And in the end, that is what you need. You do not want to let them be the winner.
Right.
You want to be the winner. You want to come out on top, because if you don't find victory, they've got you
forever.
Yes. And what worst thing that can happen to yourself? And you are worth every bit of happiness. You are worth everything that God wants you to have. Absolutely everything. Reach out to me. I'm more than happy to talk to you. Reach out to a pastor if you don't have one. Find one. Any pastor would be happy to talk to anyone about this. Find a therapist. If you can't find a therapist, or you don't have the resources or the money, talk to your doctor. Anybody.
Sure.
There's somebody.
There's free resources.
There's
Absolutely.
always somebody that you can reach out to talk to. And it is a hard thing to talk about, because your first question is, are they going to believe me? Is somebody actually going to believe that all of this happened to me? And I am here to tell you that yes, they will. Just reach out.
That's powerful, Trina. That's powerful. And please let go, and this is easier said than done, but please let go of the guilt and shame, because by reaching out to the right people like yourself or other victims or pastors or ministers, they're not judging you.
Nobody is judging anything, because you are a victim. You are absolutely not guilty of anything.
Never.
No.
Don't let anybody say to you, you shouldn't have worn that short skirt.
Absolutely not.
You shouldn't have been in that neighborhood, because guess what? Everybody makes not mistakes, but unwise decisions in their lifetime.
Well, you always find yourself in situations that you shouldn't be in anyway.
Hello?
You know, always.
I know.
Day-to-day situations.
It's 15 to 25.
Yep.
And you can't, that is neither here nor there. What happened. Let's move forward.
Yes.
Let's get you help moving forward.
You got to start putting one foot in front of the other.
Absolutely.
And it's day by day.
So glad that you said that. And the men, we've got to speak to the men and the mental illness issue. And if you in any way, shape, or form see, I don't know, your children's friends or a neighborhood kid or somebody at school that is in a bad home environment, we're all here for each other.
Yes.
It is our responsibility to step in and try to help each other as a community.
Yes.
Because we don't want some little boy misinterpreting anything, like any trauma in his life. A parent abandons them, or they suffered abuse in their childhood. Substance abuse, stuff like that. Then they grow up stuffing those feelings down and become men that are going to hurt other people. And that's a huge ignored thing in society. And speaking to the substance abuse, as victims, I also wanted to say, even if you found yourself going to drugs and alcohol to deal with your pain, because I'm sure that's prevalent after such a tragedy.
Oh my gosh. I remember when I couldn't sleep, I think I drank a bottle of wine a night just to try to help get me to sleep.
Absolutely.
I could have very easily gone down that road.
Right. So let's please let go of that guilt as well.
Yes.
So you're dealing with the shame of what happened to you. Now you're probably like, well, I'm just a crackhead junkie or alcoholic. Who's going to help me? Let me tell you something. I don't know why God keeps putting these people in my life, but just from my friends and community members and family that I have around me and the podcasts that I've done, I've seen so many success stories.
Yes.
And I'm going to tell you something right now. Your shame and guilt of whatever you're doing to yourself through substance abuse, it is no match for God's love for you.
No, because you have to remember you are a child of God no matter what, and He loves you.
Right.
Just
and
the way you are.
He's there whenever you want to go to Him.
Yep.
No judgment.
No judgment.
No judgment. I love that, girl. You are amazing. And so you do speak when asked at certain women's groups, and you said you've never really done an event yet, but maybe someday.
Maybe someday.
So your email will be there, because if anyone is having an event or wants you to reach out or wants to reach out to you, it's definitely worth a conversation, because
Absolutely.
I think your story is such a victorious story.
Yes.
I love the fact that you use the word victory, and a journey to the Lord. And, you know, I don't care if I'm going to have people that say, well, not everybody's Christian. Everybody goes, okay, fine, whatever. That's your story. That's what helped you.
That's what helped me.
So, you know, if you're interested, please reach out to Trina. And I'm going to end this with, what would you say is your favorite Bible verse or a story in the Bible that you feel somebody listening, even if they've never even touched a Bible, could open up and get solace from reading those words?
Isaiah 43.
Okay.
2-3.
Uh-huh.
When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze. For I am the Lord your God, the Holy One of Israel, your Savior. I give Egypt your ransom, Cush and Seba in your stead. And what that means is the presence of God is with us in the midst of any challenge that we may face. He puts us in command. We are the ones, we are His children. He's got our back no matter what. Nothing can stand in the way of God. So we know that no matter what, He's right there by our side. He's walking our journey with us. And there is absolutely nothing that we cannot do without Him.
Thank you. I'm going to have you back on a weekly basis.
just for what, Bible verses?
Yes, and I could listen to you preach all day long. I just think it's such a gift, and thank you for using such a horrific tragedy to help others, and then coming on here and shining light on it and reliving it. And I mean, I loved you before, and I love you even more now.
I love you too, girl.